Alright, so it's day 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever the caption says. I'm pretty much set on the Senkawa place I showed you yesterday, but I'm going to look at one more in Shinjuku, just because that's sort of in the center of everything. It's a little more money, but, you know, whatever. I'll just have to teach more students. Excellent street English! And I might check out one more place in Shimokitazawa later, but I don't know yet. So we'll see where the day goes. It's already 2, so I'm obviously not getting a head start on things very quick. Okay, so I've decided to blend day 5, 6, 7, whatever it was, into kind of a mishmash. I'll show you a few clips in a little bit. Different places I looked at, but what was interesting today in particular was I never know how Japanese perceive me. You know, I look like an American or a foreigner. I speak pretty decent Japanese. I got the gestures down. I know what to say, what not to say. But you know, it's not like New York where you usually have a pretty good idea if somebody doesn't like you. And I say that because one of the complications with doing the whole housing hunt when dealing with a Japanese owner is not knowing how to read certain things, etc. Although one of the places I looked at today that I ultimately will not be choosing was interesting because we talked about, the owner and I talked about how, you know, in New York, if you tell somebody you're from the Upper East Side, there might be sort of a preconceived notion of what you're like and where you're coming from. Same thing if you tell them from South Williamsburg. I mention that because I think in the U.S. and especially in New York, people's constructions of each other come from a combination of race, you know, well, I guess if you want to put the usual parlance, classism, racism, ageism, etc. And it just becomes a process of, you know, one's constantly negotiating their own stereotypes and expectations. I think in Japan it's also the case, but especially in Tokyo, and I hadn't realized this, you know, if you tell someone you're from within a certain township or a certain area, they're going to judge you. Your business card's going to be judged based on your rank and the neighborhood you live in. The reason I say all this is because I think one of the biggest challenges for me while I'm here is going to be negotiating the in-group, out-group, and negotiating, you know, when to, which connections to use and how. And, you know, I'm realizing now, it's funny, I actually came across this article while I was reading this magazine. There's a feature profile on Andrew Sorkin, who, as you guys know from the Times, very well known, went to school with him back in Scarsdale. And one of the things that this article mentions, and I think it applies to what I'm doing here in Japan, is it's all about who you know and how you know them and how you work the connections you have. And what I'm trying to figure out is whether it's possible to do that here without, let me backtrack a little bit. So one of the people I met with to see an apartment was saying about all the connections she has and how she'll introduce me to X, Y, and Z. On one hand, I'm thinking that's great, but on the other hand, I'm thinking, well, if you're flouting your connections, how solid and useful are they? And, you know, maybe this reflects having been in New York for so many years, but my attitude is I'm coming here to do things my way. And as far as living situations, I don't want to necessarily live with 8 people from all around the world and become BFF with them. That's great if I were new to Japan in 20, but I figure I'm 32, I'm here on with, you know, my own ADD fashion on a mission. So it's one of these things where I'm like, I kind of want to live with this other roommate whose place you'll see in a little bit. Sort of keeps to himself, does his own thing. I do my own thing. I'm here to make the connections I want on my own terms. And although that's not very Japanese necessarily, I'm wondering how it'll play out here based on my appearance. Anyway, that's my babbling spiel for today. Here goes some clips from the places I looked at. Enjoy! If I could figure out how to turn off this effing camera. One stop from the neighborhood, but way more than a hike. Way more of a hike than I prefer. Sorry, been 3-4 minutes. And no smoking signs, but I not paid attention too much because it smells like what that? Well.
This is Anastasia Romanova. この人ロシアンキャットね。でこっちがね犬尾ちゃん。犬ですよこの人。
ワンワン。
そう犬尾ちゃん。であれはニャングマルコビッチニャンギート。かわいいわよ。
あ、まあ、っていうかなんか、僕は探すのはなんか7ヶ月のコミットメントはちょっと長いでしょ。
だからここはバジェットルームじゃない、これは普通の部屋なの。
はいはい。
これはだから本当は8万円なのね。それでみんなここにこういうのを置いておいてね、
はい、
次の人がまた使えるようにして。
それを便利と思う。
そういうのが便利でしょ。これはね、8月にね、
はい、
新しくしたのをね、
はい。
で、ここは先月新しくした。
あ、OK。
だからまだすごく新しい。まだお金払ってない。
はいはい。お風呂。
でもここは、だから明日来るんだったら別にそれは構わないけれど、ここでもね、
はい。
ただね、12月1日はここは、
そう、今、my plan right now is なんかもしできれば、じゃあ、多分さ、日本だよ。It's not New York。
ニューヨークでもほらたくさんロックするからね、日本人はね。
OK。
ちょっと隣の部屋はね、まだね、用意してないの。ちょっと布団を2つ引いちゃったから。
はい。So I just had an interesting conversation following up on what I was saying earlier with my mom's friend who I'm staying with and her son about how, if you are Japanese and you're born and raised in Japan and people are, other Japanese are in the process of ranking you based on appearance, based on what's on your business card, etc., that's sort of the norm, but it's a fuzzy line when you're conceived of as a foreigner. And one of the things I've talked about with people is that there's the ability to play up the gaijin card or to play up the foreigner status can sometimes work in one's favor. It is a double-edged sword, and I have sort of ambivalent feelings about when to exercise that foreign, ness. In any event, I think what's going to be the most rewarding experience out of the time that I'm here, aside from trying to make the connections and making it with music and teaching English on the side, is really being able to better understand the unspoken cultural differences, I guess, that I'm going to be encountering on the regular here and trying to figure out and learning in negotiating them how to be sort of more open-minded to whatever challenges come my way in life in general, wherever I end up ultimately living. So, the more you know. I feel a song coming on.